Welcome to the Tech Talks, and I hope we get the audio fixed. If not, I'll speak up. Let me know if you can't hear me. So Tech Talks has been initiated. Help me, Steffi. How long ago? 18. Okay, yeah. In order to accelerate and to give technological developments a forum, technological developments in creative industries, not necessarily linked to film, everything in games, in interactive media. And the supporters of the TechTalks Stuttgart are the Animation Media Creators Region Stuttgart, MFG Baden-Württemberg, Film Commission, Region Stuttgart, Hochschule der Medien and Filmakademie. And if you know Filmakademie, then you know that Animationsinstitut is a division of Filmakademie, and that's actually where I work. My name is Volker Helzle. I run the research and development department there. And today we have prepared two rather short presentations. We really want to keep it compact because we have an opportunity for you to try a multiplayer free roaming experience in VR and also check out some demos. So without further ado, late guests, please come in. Yeah. Let's get started. We'll look into two EU-funded projects which are funded under the Horizon Europe funding scheme. The first one is EMIL, the European Media and Immersion Lab. I will run a very short video.
EMIL, the European Media and Immersion Lab, is a physical and virtual laboratory infrastructure underpinned by technological and creative expertise and research excellence from 4 key creative industry regions in Europe: Finland, Germany, Spain and the United Kingdom. The overall aim of EMIL is to promote innovation and development of next-generation XR content. EMIL will cultivate a strong relationship with the creative industry community, realised through financial support to third-party. Project calls designers, game developers, engineers, entrepreneurs, media enterprises, artists, digital fabricators, museum and heritage curators, physical and cognitive caregivers, creative coders, users, citizens and public service media operators.
So don't be confused by the upper right corner of this video. There is no more call that you can apply for. This was a very short promotional video which was used to promote the second call, but it gives a good introduction into who are the partners and what's the focus. So yes, the focus is extended reality to accelerate development, services, applications in XR, which embraces virtual reality, augmented reality, and mixed reality. And again, the founding consortium or the 4 partners are Aalto University in Finland, University of Bath in the United Kingdom, the Universitat Pompeu Fabra in Barcelona, and Filmakademie in Germany. Yeah, EMIL is a physical and a virtual lab infrastructure. That means we're offering our knowledge and expertise in this area, but also our infrastructure. So we have a couple of funded projects, and I'll tell you more about those in the presentation, that make use of our mocap equipment that can come into the studio. We have one production planned for early 25, so they will be able to use our facilities and of course the network. Yeah, the big thing is really the funding that we distributed. So third-party projects received between 250 and 500,000 euros. It's not a loan, it's given to them for their project. All IP remains with them. We're supporting them. That's the structure, and I'm happy to see that we have, Jonas is here, he's a FSTP recipient, but we'll get to that point later on. Sorry? Yeah, and finally, we have sound. Okay, wonderful. Okay, yeah, the total budget for these third-party projects was 5.6 million, which is a significant amount of money. And we're very happy that we could help to accelerate development in this area. Usually regional funds for that kind of projects are available, but they're rather low compared to these project funds. This is the website, lots of information also about the projects that you'll see and the project that you can try out later on, EMIL-XR EU. And yeah, maybe quickly, we call this the EMIL Circle of Node Competence. So I introduced to you the 4 partner nodes. We have Alto on top here, and left and right from these partner nodes, you always have institutes or events that they initiate and run. And Alto is very active in smart garments. These are textiles that can transmit certain sensations, that can also measure how you feel. And they're doing a lot of research in this area, and that's where they're very strong. University of Bath, which is down here, is very active in XR gaming. That means rehabilitation in VR and in devices that can precisely measure your active movement. This is a big area, and also a lot of projects received funding more in the medical and rehabilitation space. Universitat Pompeu Fabra in Spain is located here in this graph, and they're very active in cultural heritage. They have worked a lot with museums and bring XR technologies to museums to enrich their experiences on site. And of course, Filmakademie, we've done a lot of work, student work, but also work in research, in storytelling, in XR, in VR, and we run FMX. We we have done VR now, and that's where our angle is in this wheel of competence. And together we build the backbone for all these projects to help them realizing their projects. Yeah. On top of these funded projects, every node here, Alto, BART, UPF, and Filmakademie, has their own Lighthouse project, as we call it. And FATE of the Minotaur, the area in the back here, is the Lighthouse project of Filmakademie. There's also a dedicated EMIL community, a closed LinkedIn group for us, the institutions running EMIL, but also the FSTP project, and more people from our network. So don't hesitate to open up LinkedIn and joining this group. It's really not meant to be closed. Closed in a way that people should be able to discuss EMIL-related things there, but everybody's welcome to join if you're interested. So, and with that, I have a list of funded projects. So the first call, which was started in December 22 and ended in end of January 23, only brought forward 2 projects, which started in November 23. Therefore, the second call was a bit richer. The call itself lasted from mid-June till mid-August, and these are the funded projects that started in January. We have one late supplementary call nomination, which is Crew in Brussels. They started in August. Now, you see that they're widely distributed across Europe. And what we do within the mentoring structure is that every 2 months, we ask them to give us a 55-second video presentation of their current status. I'll just run 7 minutes of that, so you'll meet 7 projects which have a bit more of a media angle to it. Not all of them do. Some are medical and rehabilitation focused. So I thought for this audience, I keep it compact because I don't want to bore you with too long videos. So let's have a look at that.
Hey, I'm Tim, representing Aalto University's Lighthouse project, Smart Garments for Enhancing Virtual Experiences with Thermal Feedback. Over the past few weeks, we have been refining the design of this garment to make sure to give more consistent haptic feedback. We've also set up a user study where we are testing if different heat and vibration patterns can affect people's emotions. We've created both static and moving heat patterns and are measuring physiological signals such as sweat levels, heart rate, or eye activity. The study is now officially underway, and we are excited to see the results.
Hi, I'm Alexander Kreische from Filmakademie Baden-Württemberg. During the last 2 months, our EMIL-Lighthouse project, the VR experience FATE of the Minotaur, has reached some important milestones. We successfully completed filming for Scale Option 1, a non-interactive stereoscopic 180-degree film, over 2 action-packed days in a virtual production process in one of our studios. Meanwhile, we're nearing the finish line with Scale Options 2 and 3, our larger interactive experiences. Option 2 offers single-player and multiplayer modes, while Option 3 adds free roaming capabilities in an 8x8 meter space. We also hosted a fun demo session at Europa Park with participants from the XR-savvy team at Mach 1, who provided us with valuable feedback from their experience perspective. And last but not least, we're excited to announce that FATE of the Minotaur has been nominated for Best Installation at XRC Next Reality Contest, as well as for our REA Award in January 2025. So fingers crossed and Minotaur horns up for some good luck. Thanks for tuning in.
Hi, Paul here from the Full Body Interaction Lab at the UPF node of EMIL. In September, our Lighthouse project, the AR Magic Lantern, made its public debut at an immersive art exhibit here in Barcelona. The exhibition was hosted by the Espronceda Institute of Art and Culture and built by Niall Hill, Rafa Roeder, and our own Fran Macia. It places visitors in the middle of a speculative fiction scenario in which a climate crisis has caused severe drought. As a participant, you join a group of weather scientists in a last-ditch attempt to save humanity. You use the AR Magic Lantern to reveal clues in the surrounding landscape, and then use the clues to solve puzzles on the physical weather control station, resulting in a true mixed reality experience that visitors enjoyed as participants and observers. We're honored that the team incorporated the AR Magic Lantern into their work. If you have an idea for how it could be used in your project, we're interested. Please get in touch. Thanks.
Hello, I'm Adrian from Atlas 5. We're the team building the Shaun the Sheep Immersive Exhibition FSTP project. Since the last Fast Forward, we've been preparing the project for 2 major milestones: animation and the playtests, which will be taking place at the end of this month. To prepare for animation, we've blocked out the farm environment inside a simulated virtual room in Unreal Engine. This is where our intro scene, which mirrors the iconic opening from the show, will be taking place. We've also iterated on the design of our main interactive scene, a crowd-controlled obstacle course through the English countryside. And we've built it in a way so that major elements like speed, difficulty, camera placement, and even the main movement mechanics can be adjusted based on the results of our playtests. Once this phase is over, we'll have all we need to start animating and integrating assets. Thank you.
Enter the amusement park full of wonders and fossil industry themed attractions. How about a gas pipeline roller coaster, a freefall oil rig tower, or a big wheel with shovels as cabins, framed by the aesthetic of marvelous antique oil springs. This unique setting will underline the satirical aspect of our game and focuses on the fun of turning that evil amusement park into a source for renewable energy. In addition to the blaster, we implemented 2 more game mechanics. The so-called solar drops, which drop upon the destruction of enemies, can be collected as a quick energy recharge for the EPEX. Also a revive mechanic, allowing for more multiplayer fun, as friends have to rush for aid to revive knocked out players.
Hi everyone, we're back with updates on Co-op Escape, our XR game for team development.
This time we are excited to introduce you to Mission 4, The Stationary. In this mission, our explorers arrive at an abandoned space station. The challenge? Rearrange the station's cubic modules to gather the resources needed to continue the journey. In our current prototype, we test the layout and mechanics using placeholder assets. Our goal is to craft a fun, strategic puzzle that truly challenges the team's problem-solving skills. Our design team is busy crafting the space station's look. Let's take a first peek at the exterior and interior designs. There's much more in the works.
If you want to learn more, reach out or stay tuned for updates.
Our 2-month journey begins with our efforts dedicated to control the diversity of our single-shot generation model. Our implementations along with some preliminary results has been submitted as a poster paper at the SIGGRAPH Asia 2024 conference and have been accepted for publication. The conference will be held in Tokyo on the 3rd of December. Next stop would be our initial approach for 3D body motion restyling, where we integrated a state-of-the-art method into our real-time capturing software. The experiment provided valuable feedback for our next steps in this direction. Final stop, our brand new open-source repository from where we share our implementations and tools with the 3D animation community. Our goal is to add more material in this repository by the end of the project.
I could talk 2 hours about these projects, and the others that we couldn't look into are just as interesting. Some are on Parkinson rehabilitation and a lot of interesting stuff, but I thought these would be most interesting for you. And you can see some are more content-oriented, some are very technical. The guys from Greece, Movers, that's markerless motion capturing. Most of them have some angle of AI use in them, which hasn't been pointed out here in this 1 minute, but the idea is really to see the progress, and you can watch all these videos on our website. But now we have Andreas Dahn, who's been our experience director for the Lighthouse project, Fate of the Minotaur. Andreas.
Yeah, hello everyone. Thank you for the nice everybody's energy in the evening getting up to face the Minotaur. So I was very lucky to get the position of XR director for this narrative, scalable, location-based VR experience, and immersive it's also. And so to get you some more information on this one, some of you played it already today, some others might play it after this tech talk. So it's our Lighthouse project within the European Media Immersion Lab. And it's set in the Greek mythology. It's about the story of the Minotaur and his family story. So you descend into the labyrinth of the Minotaur as the human sacrifices from Athens. And you learn about the tragic story behind the Minotaur, and you have to confront the character and decide upon his fate to get out of the labyrinth. It's a location-based VR escape game. That means it's not meant for playing at home. It's meant for going to some theme park or museum or gallery or shopping mall, where we can basically pop up the experience within an hour or two, and then give it out for people to try it out. So we would hand out the equipment, people can try it out, and then they give it back and they enjoyed the ride, hopefully. So in the maximum version, it is free roaming on 8x8 meters, which is what you can have here today, in multiplayer with up to 4 players. But we made it to work also with, for tighter spaces in single player or in multiplayer with joystick controls instead of really walking. And for people who, even this is too much, if you are afraid of putting up a VR headset or you don't want to have something interactive, we also have the most simple scale option, which is basically a linear 180-degree film in 3D, which you can basically watch on an iPad, on YouTube VR, or on the VR headset and just look around a little bit and with the same storyline, with the same content. So there are many different options to have a VR experience or experience the story world. The whole thing runs on mobile hardware, so there's no hidden computer tech park in this room. It's all just calculated on the mobile headsets that we're using here, which have chipsets like a high standard smartphone, basically. And so that is possible just because we used a stylized look, which is highly influenced from Greek artwork on murals and vases, which we interpreted in 3D for this experience. And the whole framework on which it's running is a tracer framework which Filmakademie developed, and that is open source and open to the public. So if you are not afraid of entering the Minotaur's labyrinth today, feel free to come here after the tech talk and try it out. Be our guests. Oh, here's a trailer.
Kronos, king of Crete, welcome you here at Knossos, where you will meet your destiny. I congratulate you on becoming the treat for the Minotaur, the creature with whose existence the gods dare to punish me and my beloved wife, Pasiphae.
My voice will guide you through these corridors.
Within the labyrinth that my loyal inventor Daedalus built underneath my palace, the Minotaur will send your blood, your flesh. Should you, against my expectations, find an exit to this place, freedom shall be yours.
You're almost free!
Open the gate, Pasiphae.
Always fun to watch. I really recommend giving the experience a try. It's turned out really well. The last slide for Project EMIL is about sustainability, but sustainability in the sense of keeping EMIL running after the 30-month EU funding. So we're approaching institutions, companies, individuals, and offering access to innovation and potential patents and licenses. This expert network that we have built and are continuing to build, and our potential customer access, influential policy making in the European XR landscape is also possible through a project like this. And you can also potentially address a lot of people that can test your beta hardware, software, if you have some to test. And access to unconventional XR ideas. So this is the email address and QR code with more information if you want to engage. There's a couple of individuals who already have signaled that they're interested in keeping this lab going. So that's it for EMIL in a nutshell. Any questions, anything you need to know, anything you always wanted to ask that has nothing to do with EMIL but still can ask? Do you think you have an understanding of the project?
Yeah. So thanks for the presentation. Let me ask, is there already a tendency in overall in the audio implementation in terms of binaural for headphones or even ambisonic or Atmos in a program overview, so to speak?
I'm not sure I get the question completely. You're asking about audio. I see the tigering.
You mean how much spatial audio is used in XR, or?
Yeah, and what the direction of implementation of this spatial audio, what perceptions,
it highly depends on what kind of XR you do. There are a lot of things. It's not just having the headsets, of course. You can have, let's say, immersive projections in a room, or there was an immersive concert at the Staatstheater, at the Beethoven Saal in the Liederhalle recently. And depending on what kind of spatial environment you have, you might either use special kind of speakers, of course, or spatial audios on the headset, which we also are using. That's it's really important for the immersion aspect of VR and XR, definitely. Yeah. Does that answer the question?
Yeah.
All right, then let's continue with the next presentation, which is MXR with Spielmann and Jonas Trottnow.
Maybe quickly, as long as my colleague is loading the presentation, for our game, so it's a mixture out of everything. You basically, depending on if you want to have something like a God of Voice in the background or something in off, then it's maybe just all omnipresent audio. For specific game sounds, you can locate this because we are in a full 3D environment. You can place it wherever you want, and then at the end, the rendering depends on whatever you want to achieve. For example, we decided to go to a stereo headset, stereo capable headset. So of course, it's dependent on your view angle, distance, and so on, and the sound will then change, and can also, if you want, simulate environments and stuff like this. Okay, but You already heard it, so we are more from the technical side, and we had the luck to get another EU-funded project within the research team. So my name is Spielmann. I'm here with my colleague Jonas Trottnow, and now we're going to show you the EMIL-XR project and what we do inside this project. So EMIL-XR, you see it already here, stands for Mixed, Augmented and Extended Reality Media Pipeline. Quite clumsy thing here, but let's start with a small
EMIL-XR is a 30-month innovation action. EMIL-XR stands for Mixed, Augmented and Extended Reality Media Pipeline. The project aims to define, develop, validate and demonstrate a complete pipeline of tools for making, processing and delivering maximum quality XR content. The EMIL-XR Consortium unites a unique mixture of Europe's leading media technology developers and researchers. Stay tuned for new EMIL-XR developments through our website and our social media channels.
So as you see, it's a quite huge consortium, so we have a lot of partners. It's a mixture out of industry and universities, how it's usually done in such EU-funded research projects. And we had the luck to be part of it. So yeah, there are companies like ARI, also the BBC, British Broadcast Corporation, True, which is a artist collective doing VR and XR content since years now. Filmlight, which is focused on color grading, so there's a really wide spectrum of participants here. And from our side, we basically, so from the development side, we have two bigger packages here I want to talk about. First of all, we have developments called Tracer and Data Hub, and then AnimHost. So what is it? You already heard about Tracer in the presentation before. Tracer is something like a software infrastructure we developed which can connect arbitrary GCC applications in the universe of XR technology with each other. So let's say you have your Blender and you have your Unreal and you want to communicate between these applications. And you want to connect these applications. So then if you have a developer and you can use Tracer and its API, which defines how to implement these connections. And with this framework, we will be able to construct a whole universe pipeline connecting all these applications together. So in the middle, there is something we call Data Hub, which is basically the connecting point. And then we have this whole universe of things like Unreal Blender, you see it here, any DCC application, as well as AnimHost. And what AnimHost is will shortly follow. And now these applications can basically transfer scene data as well as updates to each other. So as an example, our game, you have multiplayers there, so you have 4 players playing inside one world. And the whole logic and the whole movement of the players and everything the player does is transferred using our framework we develop in this project. And now you can imagine you could also have these players inside your DCC application. Doesn't make sense here, but just to let you know that everything is possible. Then on the other side, AnimHost, it's a framework for generating character animation, basically. It's as a starting point, a black box, and for this black box, you can develop plugins. A plugin is then some sort of way to create a character animation. Can be anything. Can be a mocap, can be just a playback of a clip, but can be a way more complex thing like a machine learning algorithm or a whole framework around machine learning, knowing how pipette animation for humanoids are made. And as an example implementation, we also will provide a machine learning solution to be able to create on-the-fly character animation for pipette animations based on just inputting a path, and then system will create a plausible character animation out of this path without any need of additional high-level animation, footstepping, and stuff like this. But we will come to this later on with a nice example. Yeah, and with this slide, I hand over to my colleague.
Yeah, thank you, Simon. As it's written there, artificial intelligence, that's kind of my topic here at Filmakademie, and I want to do a little bit of a step back from EMIL-XR and talk a little bit about how we address artificial intelligence here at the Filmakademie, and then coming back to our developments around AI in the EMIL-XR project. So first of all, since around 3 years, we have a code of conduct for our students that helps to define how to use AI at Filmakademie. So this code of conduct is really not a restriction for students. It's more an engagement to, or a motivation to engage around AI and to try it out and and that's really important, be transparent about using it in their projects. Basically, that's the most important thing that we define in this code of conduct. Always say that you used AI for whatever you use AI at Filmakademie. So the transparency, especially in the project, if final images are coming from AI, that needs to be mentioned, but also in the steps towards these final images, we want transparency. We also differentiate tools and generative AI. So there's a lot of AIs that filmmakers can use, from chat bots to image generators to VFX tools that would upscale your image or that would reduce noise or just tag your images and so on. So there's tools where very small parts of a pipeline in VFX, animation or anything are replaced by AI. This would, for example, be upscaling or denoising. On the other side, there's generative AI, which has at least the potential to replace an entire pipeline or a big portion of a pipeline. And we try to differentiate here. So the usage of AI as a tool is usually without any problems. The usage of AI with generative AI usually requires a second look if that's really feasible, if it will result in the best possible imagery that a student, for example, would want to create here. We have established quite a lot of lectures here around AI, especially at the Animationsinstitut. So, for example, just on Monday, we had a broad introduction into all the aspects of AI that could influence the work of filmmakers in the future. There's also technical introductions into how to train your own models and so on. So it's a really broad spectrum of lectures that we offer. But there's also a lot of uncertainty among our students. So they ask themselves the question, does it make sense to study something like this in these times still? Is it the right place for me to now study character animation here or concept art or whatever? And is that is there a future where I can apply this in my work life? And usually our answer is you should be really open to these new technologies. You should use the room that we give you to try these out here at the Filmakademie and see how much you want to use them in the future life, but you at least should be knowledgeable about these AIs. So you should know when it can be useful and when not. There are various studies on the effects of AI for creative industries which fuel this discussion. And there's obviously a lot of media coverage that is claiming to do all the creative work done by AI automatized. But when it comes to actually realizing a creative vision of somebody with an AI, it becomes quite difficult to actually address that with an AI. There's also the aspect of AI and sustainability. Sustainability is one big topic that we in the R&D team are also addressing, and AI has, on the one hand, the potential to aid that. So more sustainable productions can be realized through AI. For example, rendering costs can be drastically reduced through AI, and so on. But on the other side, AI has also a huge environmental impact. Usually the training of AIs uses loads of energy. The application then doesn't so much, but still has some demands. So in general, AIs that are meant for one specific purpose, for one production, one shot, don't make sense. AIs that are broadly applied might make more sense. And within the youth-funded project MaxR, and also with our, throughout our entire studies, we always try to follow the leitmotif artists in the loop. So we want to create AIs and use AIs that enable creatives, artists to do to realize their visions and not to replace them. Yeah, and therefore we have EMIL and MaxR. EMIL you already heard about. MaxR we are currently in the presentation. And with that, so you already heard about AnimHost a little bit. That is one of our main AI research topics currently. And as you heard, AnimHost is made for character animation driven by multiple generators. And these generators could, for example, be AI generators. And we implemented one of those. And since it's an AI, it needs some data to train on. And this data we actually recorded here in the studio as well. And we can have a look at how that went here in this video. Yeah, so what you saw is motion capturing, and motion capturing is quite widely used within animation productions, but what we did is a little different to yeah, shot-based work that you would usually do with motion capturing. What we captured is so-called dance cards, or you could also call it walking paths. So we had specifically defined paths that the actor would walk or just move over. And with this data, so we had like quite a lot of minutes of motion capturing data that we captured. With that data, we trained a deep neural network. And we used an implementation which uses face functions. Technical term here, maybe somebody knows about that. Basically the idea is to learn how the actor in this specific role was performing the movements and be able to recreate these interactively in the end, either through a game like steering or a more artistic driven approach where you could define a walking path, and based on that walking path, an animation would be generated which matches that path, and we can see that in the next video. So here we can see the application that you could define the path in. Here, for example, a path is defined by a few points, key points, and we distribute it to AnimHost, and AnimHost generates the animation, and the animation is then applied to the character, which moves first, of course, in Blender in the application, and then later on in the rendering. The character would obviously also follow that path. I mean, the output of AnimHost is not really meant as final animation output for a feature film. It's more targeting pre-visualization or being a base for further development that can be done by a character animator. It's really a quick tool to lay out animations that are specifically trained on an actor's performance. Yeah, and with that, I will come back to Serge.
Yes, let's continue. And this brings us to the next slide. So usually in these research projects, you have to prove that what you develop at the end works in some way. And therefore, they have installed something they call demonstrators. And for our outcome of the projects, we plan to do a short film. It's called Survivor. It's a test to evaluate and visualize development tools and workflows under a realistic production environment. It's important here. So therefore, we came up for the idea with this animated short film, which is completely rendered in Unreal and partially AI generated, like Jonas already showcased. So the idea is to really keep the artist in the loop here and have this pipeline between Blender where the artist can lay out and produce these animations, and the machine learning in the background can help and assist him to create some parts of this animation. Surely not everything, but at least 70% of everything. And you saw it, it's like I described it at the beginning. So the first idea is to define a path with key points on this path, and these key points to define, for example, also moods of the character and stuff like this. And based on this information, the system and background can then create a believable first idea of the animation. Maybe you say, okay, that's nothing new. I saw this in every game, so you define a path and the character is walking there. But it's a little bit more complicated then, because usually in such game engines you have a really complex tree of a set of animations which is handmade and tweaked until the end and until perfection. And this is a really labor-intensive, long process. And with a system like this, it's way easier to get at this point. So you basically learn and train such a system based on these dance cards. And then in best case, at the end, you just need to define this path, and then the system can create, based on its trained knowledge, the animation. Yeah. Okay. And that's all for this. Digital locations. That's again your slide.
Back to me. So yeah, digital locations. That's actually an outcome of, or a demonstrator of the project that we thought of only in the middle of the project, so not in the beginning actually. And it's a cooperation between Filmakademie, the Universitat Pompeu Fabra in Barcelona, University of Hasselt, and the Film Commission Stuttgart, which most of you maybe know. The idea is really to have an interactive platform for digital location scouting. The idea is to scan locations that might potentially be used by a film production, could also be used by an interactive project, or just, for example, be used as is as a 3D model within an XR production. So with this 3D model, you can explore the location. You can plan, for example, where you can place lighting, where you can place your generator and everything. And you can also plan your shots quite nicely with specific lighting, like night or daylight, and all that in an interactive way, because it is all based around our tracer framework and our VPAT application. So what you can do is you can either explore the location with a browser based on a web GPU engine that is provided by UPF. We are currently also exploring ways to explore it as a Gaussian splat, so another visualization which is not a 3D model but gives a lot of more visual fidelity. And on the other side, you can just grab a tablet, scan a QR code, and actually I can run this demo video. So you can grab a tablet, scan a QR code, which would automatically download the 3D model onto the tablet, which you can then use to explore the location in AR, so you can really walk through it by holding your tablet into different directions, and you can navigate through it. You can edit stuff if there's, for example, lighting to edit. You can move objects around, so you can really plan and interactively and collaboratively work on that 3D location. So you can have kind of a multiplayer environment where you can jointly work on that digital location. Yeah, so here you can see actually the web GPU implementation. It's currently a first small implementation provided by UPF. And the idea is also to interconnect all of these different components. So if something moves on the tablet tool, that would be reflected in the web browser front end, and also on all the tablets being connected. And the scene would also be directly provided from the web GPU engine, so that it only needs to live in one place. So it's really easy to work with it. So for example, a film commission could host a library of 3D digital locations that can be all the, for example, castles here around Ludwigsburg. And yeah, with that, I would also invite you to to join us in our small demonstrators we have prepared for you this evening. So we have two tables there, one running the AnimHost application where we can, where you can live explore, and we will explain how this all works. And we will also have a table with digital locations. You can grab a tablet, you can try out some locations, and yeah, we can. I can share more details on the process of, for example, scanning the location that we just captured 2 weeks ago here in Ludwigsburg. And of course, we have also MINO-XR, or Fear of the Minotaur. That was the working title for it. Fear of the Minotaur here for you. And
Fate of the Minotaur.
Fate of the Minotaur. Thank you. So that's the end of our MaxR presentation. And with that, I think the presentation part is over. And
yeah, maybe time for questions. Of course, let's thank the speaker. And while you lay out your questions, so I hope you got a good idea of what that kind of projects can do for us at Filmakademie. I mean, on the one side, it allows us to develop certain things in a direction that we think will be beneficial for the next years, but also in these consortiums with other universities and companies, it's really very interesting to see how they approach specific problems and challenges, and then what they end up with 30 months later. But yeah, questions? Sven.
Thank you very much, very enlightening. AnimHost, this short film is produced here at Filmakademie within your department, or is it amongst the students?
In our department, Leszek is doing it. However, we are already starting an evaluation with ongoing projects, regular student projects, and expose them to this is AnimHost, and that's what it can do today. We still have 5 months to go till the end. That's usually the most busy time in these projects, and a lot of things are coming together at the moment. And by the way, I don't know if you said it, but everything's open source. It's on GitHub, download, build, and you know, it's there. You can use it. So.
Could you imagine doing a kind of competition at the International Trick Film Festival, stuff like that? I mean, it's a lot of organization, of course.
Competition for what exactly?
Well, you invite different groups that are interested in it, and then have 72 hours to use the tool and create a short film. They bring their own assets or whatsoever, and then on Sunday afternoon you have a big screening.
I mean, it's one tool for a big pipeline, I think. So it wouldn't like replace an entire animation or something. But yeah, I mean, as part of a competition, for example, could be interesting. I mean, still a little more fine-tuning development. So, but after the project, I think.
If you organize the workshop, that'd be nice.
About the VPAD, is it being used here at Filmakademie and HDM by the students already?
At HDM, I don't think so. Here at Filmakademie, it was frequently tested, so we run workshops for it as well. It's integrated into the set extension workshop, and yeah, it's free to use for, of course, every student. So a lot of TDs, for example, looked into it. Yeah.
For example, we will showcase it in November for the next set extension workshop students. Yeah.
Okay. So some of the scenes that you saw on this Mars area was from Cyber City Love Story, and I'm actually not sure if that link is publicly available on YouTube, but this episode that was produced is now on YouTube. For those that have the link, I can send it to you. And I have to say, everything in with the LED wall works really well. It's very consistent in the way you know, it visually looks, and there's hardly something you can distinguish between set build and these virtual extensions. So turned out really nice. Yeah. More questions? Anything you'd like to ask?
Thank you for the presentation. It was really interesting. So how many hours of motion capturing did you need for the AI? I guess you would need different actors for different characters, so they all not move the same, but yeah, how many hours approximately?
It is quite difficult to answer because we also modify the data set that we use to train. So either we select only parts of it because we want to achieve a very specific style, or we extend it by, for example, mirroring it or something like this. So there's a lot of flexibility in using the captured data. Also, of course, if you want to have different styles, if you want to have different movement styles like running, walking, and so on, you would have to have for each of these styles all of the data. The most important thing is that you have every possible movement multiple times, so it doesn't make sense to have just a lot of data. It really needs to be curated data. It needs to be well-planned data. And the specific numbers...
Nowadays, it wasn't that much.
Yeah, right? I think it was less than an hour of data. Yeah.
Less than an hour?
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is relatively...
Wow.
Created data.
Yeah, that's not that much.
We just captured 1 day or 1.5 day. Is this correct? Alexander. There's the actor.
Yeah.
Hi.
But we also captured specific motion capturings for that specific film that we knew from the beginning on that we couldn't handle through AnimHost. So very specific folds on the table, the jumping with the box, the box talking, those were specific for the movie and not used inside the AI. And then for the AI, it was just the dancing cards. I was just running around left and right into a full pattern of turning left and right 45 degrees, 90 degrees, and the full turn around. And then high speed, low speed, and medium speed. Walking with a lot of balance, walking without balance. It was just doing the same thing over and over and over.
Yeah, basically, you create this range of motion and then variations of it, and then based on this, you have a good starting point, and then every variation you want to fit in. So like some stylization and stuff like that.
Very exhausting for you, right?
So you planned it very well. What did you learn? Would you do it differently next time?
I mean, more data is always better. That's one finding, though. It's really the quality of data that matters a lot. So it's really also about then, I mean, it's not done by just capturing the data. It's then also post-processing, cleaning, putting it on the right rig that we need, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of post-production steps as well. So it's a lot of time that just goes into data prep and data capturing. Yeah.
Thank you.
And just to add, this motion capture data is also available as Creative Commons on our website, yes. So, more questions, anybody? No, not for today. I think then we have time for announcements. So, any open job positions you want to promote? No? Anything you want to let others know? No, maybe? I have something to share, and that is that we, as Jonas said earlier, I can turn this off and use the microphones over here. I'll find it, yeah. Yeah, like Jonas said, we've engaged a lot in the question of sustainability in regards of reducing energy demands. And I'm very happy and proud to say that we will be presenting a paper at SIGGRAPH Asia in Tokyo early December, in the Educator Forum about sustainable VFX. So we've looked at one of our productions and came up with an alternative production workflow. And then we're also able to do a qualitative study with over 80 participants. So this paper is really not so much about comparing feature set of different renderers, but to look at quality and question what is the quality we need, and what is the energy demand, and what is an audience response to that kind of content. And feedback and reviews from this paper were really encouraging. Looking forward to present this to a larger audience. And we've just put it up a few days ago, so if you're interested, please keep on reading. There's more. We've done also another VR piece in the Application Center project, which can run on a S-Bahn, short distance train, in sync with the train movement, GPS controlled. And the idea is to bring people into using short distance trains because there's an exciting VR experience as an idea. And the other one is this report that we did in 22 on comparing use of LED walls against traditional post-production, rendering backgrounds, and green screening, which turned out to be the first of its kind. And then later on, a lot of reports came up with very comparable measure numbers. And in a nutshell, you can save by using these LED screens and virtual production. And that closes the loop to XR, because EMIL and MaxR both were in the call of the EU for XR projects. And we think that extended reality technology is really a gate opener to a lot of things. There's also a tendency that AI will accelerate these ideas of metaverse and how to populate these worlds that are not able to be produced and populated by hand, but you need automation for it. So yeah, with that, thanks for being here. We have snacks, we have drinks, and we have demos, so what more do you want? Thank you for being here.